Okay, so my next movie that Disney should make, if they freaking had the guts. Uh, there's a planet, for those unfamiliar with the Star Wars lore. So the planet Coruscant is basically a giant city. Like the entire planet is just one big city. And this is also where the Republic Senate is before the Empire takes over. So this is kind of the center of government, and of course, a huge population. Uh, but it should start like right after the Empire takes over. So I mean, even the opening scenes, you can have like the unfurling the flags of the Empire and stuff, and showing stormtroopers unloading from the troop carriers and rounding up the poor and all this. But basically, the movie itself would follow. So the Republican Security Force, which was basically the police before the Empire took over. So it would follow one of them who is excited when the Empire takes over, because they're a very law and order, kind of tough as nails sort of cop, just your typical almost film noir beat cop type individual. And so they're excited that the Empire is taken over, because they think the Republic has been too easy on crime, and now they have this law and order government taken over. But and then slowly over time, as you follow him or her, whichever, or they, them, it doesn't matter. The important thing is sort of their character, not their, anyway. But so as it follows them, and they start off this like gung-ho kind of roughing up the bad guys, not really minded much when stormtroopers start rounding up the homeless, not really questioning much, just going along and having a heyday, because they're finally getting what they think they wanted. But then, over time, they slowly start to see sort of the corruption within the system, the even more extreme brutality than they like, even though they're very, tough as nails and beat up the bad guys and shoot first, ask questions later. They still kind of start to see that, wow, this is really not what I was thinking, But also, so they're following these different cases and stuff, and kind of growing more and more disillusioned with the Empire. And, at the same time, this could be the story of like how the resistance to the Empire starts, at least on Coruscant. So, and maybe even, initially the central figure, the Empire cop, is of course obviously going to be antagonistic to these freedom fighters. He's very, they, very anti what they're doing, sees them as terrorists, basically. So, but then again, as time goes on and they start to see, not just the tactics they're using, but the tactics used against them, and they start to see, start talking with, arresting some of them and talking with them, and just, and they're already being disillusioned, so they just their progress, that's their character arc. One of the main throughs of the movie, their character arc is going from that strict law and order type to seeing like what that actually leads to, the fascist, essentially, kind of empire government, the absolute fulfillment of everything they thought they wanted, and it's actually horrific even for them to look at. So yeah, and then but also you can kind of follow the gray of which they've started doing in some of the other movies, like with Rogue One, with the Mandalorian and stuff, where they're getting a little grittier, and you can kind of show the gray areas there. As far as the resistance isn't perfect, it was not founded perfectly. Mistakes were made, and so yeah, I mean, just to examine the gray area of that resistance, but also at the same time, of course, the resistance is right. The empire is horrible, so. But there could be even a struggle within the resistance. Like, does the ends always justify the means? Are you really the good guy if you believe that? If you act that way? But anyway, so then that's kind of one of the main thrusts of the movie, is just the cop's sort of transformation from supportive of the empire to disillusion to kind of actively supporting the resistance. At least once he helps clean up the resistance and kind of straighten out their kind of gray area. But also, another interesting through line they could do that I think would be extremely important and kind of helping his disillusionment along is that there's a serial killer on the loose. And I know it's a Disney movie, but you don't have to show like gory scenes. You're never going to show the serial killer in action, really. You just kind of get glimpses of the crime scene and discussions of the crime scene afterwards, as they're investigating. So you don't really need to go like hardcore gory or anything, just enough to make it interesting and, but of course it's Disney. They'll want it at least teen relatable. So, but you could still do a lot with that. I mean, teens are capable of handling much more. So it doesn't have to be a children's movie. But anyway, so as they're following the serial killer, and this is years are passing as this goes by. So this is, as he's already, I always default to he, I don't know why. Anyway, I know. Anyway, so as this already being disillusioned, and then this investigation into the serial killer, as well as the interactions with like arresting and chasing the resistance, but really kind of helps drive the nail in the coffin as far as him seeing how the empire actually operates, and the end result of his own previous ideology. So, but what I thought would be amazing, again, if Disney had the guts, I don't know if they really do, but so, and spoiler alerts, if they ever make this movie, you might, yeah, that'll happen. But so the killer is actually probably the only survivor from the Jedi Temple massacre. So when Anakin slaughtered all the children, at least one got away, but they are so scarred and like severely messed up due to what they went through. And then on top of that, they have these force powers that they were just learning to control. And now they've had a few years of, they experienced this severe trauma, and are just so emotionally and mentally scarred. And then there's these years pass where they're not really they're basically in hiding. They're not being trained to control their powers. So like there's just all, so basically you just have somebody that's severely messed up, not through fault of their own, but again, in unable to really control their powers. And then, yeah, so, and when stressed or, going through these like PTSD, panic attacks, and that is when the murders occur. So they're actually killing people with the force, and maybe intentionally, maybe they've just disintegrated that much, having been through so much, That's kind of their villain origin story is, they watched a bunch of kids get murdered, their classmates, and then having powers they couldn't control to go on top of that, and then no real therapy following that up, because of course the Empire was looking to kill any Force user like them, especially anybody that had any contact with the Jedi. So, they were basically just kind of hidden away, and plus all the Jedi that lived went into hiding. So, yeah, they really had no proper mentors to kind of cope. And so I don't know. I just think that would be a fascinating addition, kind of a nice little twist in the story to go along with the kind of grittier already tale of the police officer. So, all right, so that's movie number 2. That again, I mean, I think it would be a great chance to really flush out Coruscant as a city beyond the Galactic Senate and beyond the Jedi Temple. And even show that the Senate and the previous Republic was not, utopia. There were a lot of poor and homeless on Coruscant. And, a lot of struggling and stuff like that. So, and that's something that, could also be addressed. And just fleshing out the Star Wars universe as a whole. Again, that's what I really want Disney to do as they make movies. Coruscant should be a main character in this movie and develop what it's really like there. What is it really like to live on a planet that is just one city? And how wild that would be. And then, all the political aspects of having a republic that only on the surface pretended to care about the poor, but they were really, all the leaders were super wealthy. They were all well taken care of. So, and then you had the poor, which were just kind of hidden away for the most part. But there were tons and millions of them. Anyway, so that is movie number 2. I hope you enjoy. And adios.